Let's start by understanding what Mukesh Kas is actually arguing here. He's not saying BNB Chain is technically broken, he's not claiming Kaspa is already more successful. What he's saying is far more surgical. BNB Chain's ecosystem is architected around organizational influence, and that creates dependency risk that most builders aren't accounting for. Here's where it gets technical, and this is important. BNB Chain uses a relatively small set of validators. We're talking roughly 21 active validators on the core network. Compare that to Bitcoin's thousands of independent nodes, or Ethereum's tens of thousands of stakers. Fewer validators means faster block production and lower operational costs. It also means concentrated power. When you have 21 validators, a coordinated attack targeting a subset of those validators becomes mathematically feasible. More importantly, regulatory pressure becomes incredibly effective. If authorities demand that BNB Chain validators comply with specific restrictions, the enforcement is tractable. You're not trying to coordinate a global network of independent actors, you're applying pressure to 21 entities. This is where Kaspa enters the picture with a completely different approach. Kaspa uses proof-of-work mining, with no fixed validator set. Anyone with computational power can participate in block production. That's not just philosophically cleaner, it's structurally resilient. You cannot regulate a proof-of-work network the way you can regulate a validator-based chain. The decentralization isn't ideological, it's practical risk management. But here's where I need to be brutally honest. Kaspa's technical superiority doesn't automatically translate to market dominance. BNB Chain has accumulated an ecosystem moat that's genuinely difficult to displace. We're talking about thousands of applications, billions in total value locked, and massive retail liquidity. When a builder decides where to launch their protocol, they're choosing BNB Chain because that's where capital gravitates. BNB also has what we call utility alignment. The token doesn't just exist as a speculative asset, it has real, tangible utility. Trading fee discounts on Binance, launchpad access that compounds wealth for token holders, buyback mechanisms that tie token appreciation directly to exchange activity and platform growth. That's a feedback loop that creates strong price support regardless of decentralization concerns. Kaspa, it doesn't have that. It has fair launch purity, decentralization narrative, and technical elegance. Those things matter to cryptography enthusiasts and decentralization maximalists. They matter significantly less to someone trying to make practical financial returns. But, and this is critical, regulatory outcomes are genuinely uncertain. If we enter a phase where regulators aggressively target exchange-controlled infrastructure, BNB Chain faces structural headwinds that no amount of ecosystem liquidity can fully offset. It's not just regulatory fines, it's operational restrictions that limit what Binance can do with its own chain. Imagine a scenario where the SEC rules that Binance cannot operate as a validator, cannot provide liquidity, or cannot direct traffic to BNB Chain. Suddenly, the chain's biggest advantage, Binance's coordination power, becomes a regulatory liability. Applications face immediate uncertainty, liquidity evaporates, builders start migrating to alternatives. Kaspa doesn't have that exposure because Kaspa has no central figure regulators can target. That's not speculation, that's structural reality. Fair launch, community governance, no foundation control, those characteristics make regulatory attacks significantly more difficult. Let me break down what makes Kaspa technically different. Most blockchains produce one block at a time in a linear chain. BNB Chain does this efficiently, but it's still fundamentally linear. Kaspa uses BlockDAG architecture. It produces multiple blocks in parallel and organizes them in a directed acyclic graph structure. Why does that matter? It means Kaspa can theoretically process transactions at significantly higher throughput while maintaining proof-of-work security. You get Bitcoin-level decentralization and immutability with Ethereum-level transaction capacity. That's not hype, that's cryptographic elegance. BNB Chain achieves high throughput through centralization. Fewer validators means faster consensus. Kaspa achieves it through technical innovation. Different paths. One scales through organizational coordination, one scales through mathematics. For the long term, mathematical scaling beats organizational scaling. Organizational scaling is always vulnerable to disruption. Mathematical scaling compounds indefinitely. Now, I need to be fair to the counter-argument. Kaspa still has to execute. The ecosystem remains small compared to BNB. Liquidity is thinner. Real-world adoption is limited. BlockDAG, at massive scale, is still somewhat unproven operationally, even if it's proven theoretically. Building thousands of applications on Kaspa requires belief that the liquidity will follow. Currently, it hasn't. That's not a theoretical problem. That's a real market problem. Kaspa might have technically superior architecture and practically superior regulatory resilience, but if nobody builds on it, both advantages become moot. This is why BNB maintains its position. It's the path of least resistance. As a builder, you choose BNB because capital is there, liquidity is there. Regulatory concerns feel like abstractions when immediate returns are at stake. Alright, if this breakdown of blockchain architecture and regulatory risk just shifted how you think about your portfolio, you absolutely need to understand the deeper mechanics. Most creators just say BNB good or Kaspa good, but there's actual structural reasoning here that affects real capital allocation decisions. If this technical analysis helped you see the hidden tensions between centralization and resilience, smash that like button right now. It tells YouTube that this depth matters, and it helps us push this kind of analysis to more people who actually want to understand architecture instead of chasing price pumps. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and enable notifications. When regulatory pressure actually hits major chains, you're going to want to watch our breakdown immediately. We analyze second and third order effects that most creators won't touch. Let's keep going. This comes down to how you define success. If you're optimizing for returns in the next 12 to 24 months, BNB is objectively the better choice. More ecosystem activity means more narrative strength. More retail participation means more volatility. You can trade. More institutional validation means more capital inflows. But if you're thinking 5 to 10 years, and you believe regulatory pressure will intensify on exchange-controlled infrastructure, Kaspa represents a fundamentally different risk profile. It's not that Kaspa is guaranteed to win. It's that Kaspa's architecture prevents a specific class of catastrophic failure that BNB is structurally exposed to. The honest truth? Both can be successful. Both can fail. But they fail for different reasons. BNB fails if Binance faces regulatory constraints that crimp the ecosystem's ability to operate. Kaspa fails if it can't achieve sufficient liquidity and ecosystem adoption to matter at scale. This debate isn't really about BNB versus Kaspa, it's about whether crypto's long-term future belongs to centralized platforms built for efficiency or decentralized protocols built for resilience. That tension exists everywhere in crypto. It exists in Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Ethereum is faster, more flexible, more developer-friendly. Bitcoin is slower, more rigid, and more decentralized. Ethereum has captured more ecosystem activity. Bitcoin has captured more regulatory resilience and institutional respect. The same pattern plays out here. BNB has captured more ecosystem activity. Kaspa has structured itself for better regulatory resilience. The market will eventually decide which property matters more. Until then, smart investors understand both narratives and position accordingly. So here's what I want you to walk away with. Mukesh Kass isn't claiming Kaspa is already winning the market. He's claiming the trust built on mathematics eventually outlasts trust built on coordination. That might take 5 years. That might take 10 years. But structurally, it's a coherent argument. BNB Chain will probably continue dominating in the short term. Its liquidity, ecosystem, and Binance backing are too powerful to ignore. But if you're thinking about where capital migrates when regulatory pressure actually arrives, Kaspa has positioned itself better. That doesn't make it a guaranteed winner. It makes it a hedged position against a specific risk most investors aren't pricing in. Thanks for watching TJ Crypto World. If this technical breakdown of centralization versus decentralization architecture changed how you think about blockchain risk, drop a comment below. Are you optimizing for short-term returns with BNB, or are you hedging with Kaspa's regulatory resilience? And before you leave, check out our latest video on how regulatory frameworks will reshape crypto in 2026. I break down which narratives actually survive regulatory scrutiny. The link is pinned in the comments. Stay analytical, stay structured, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.